Hi there, welcome back to the channel Custom Carving and Epoxy UK. Now, I've been watching quite a few videos on the velvet technique, or whatever you want to call it, where you can use UV resin to get that velvety look in your piece. And I've seen on every video almost people really struggling with the peeling off of whatever it is they've used to create those layers in between the sort of curing and the backing. And I thought to myself, there's got to be a solution. So I've been racking my brains and I've thought about a possible solution. Now, whether it's going to work or not, I don't know. That's what this is about. It's about experimenting, trying to find techniques that work and make it simpler for you to get these great techniques. So if that's what you're interested in, stay tuned and let's get straight to it. So here we are, guys, back in the workshop, and from what I've seen, people have been basically putting in the UV resin, laying on some sort of silicone, most people using gloves. Now, interestingly, I've not got any clear gloves at the moment, but I have got these light blue ones, and I'm hoping that they're thin enough for the light to still penetrate through and cure and create that effect. But where people seem to struggle is when they're peeling the silicone off, it seems to be almost demolding the piece before they can put their backing on. So I thought I'd try something different, and I have got some silicone release spray, which I always use on the inside of the mold. But I thought, what about if I spray whatever I'm going to put down to create that effect with the release spray? Will that have the same effect and make it easy to peel off? So that's what we're going to find out. So first of all, just going to cut one of these gloves and try and get a rough oval shape, because I'm going to do it in this oval mold. Now again, it doesn't have to be precise, because for me the whole thing doesn't have to be completely covered. It's just a case of getting the size of the piece that you want and then experimenting with it, you know. And if this works, it should hopefully peel off a little bit easier. So I'm just going to get it rough. As you can see, just cutting a rough oval shape in. And I'm not too fussed about how perfect it is, providing it roughly will fit into that oval shape in the mold. So that for me is almost there, because as I say, once it's in the resin you can actually tuck it in and do whatever you want with it, really. So, and if this works, hopefully it'll be a much easier way for us all to try this velvet technique. So happy with that. As I say, I'm only going to do one because this is more of a test to see if the process actually works. So make sure the mold you're going to use is clean. This is the silicone release spray that I always use. So I'm just going to spray, firstly, a couple of squirts in there, which will make sure that the whole piece will come out eventually. And then I'm going to try and use this. So first thing to do is get a UV lamp set up and ready. And that is working, so that's great. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use this hard type UV resin, put a thin layer, well, probably up to about halfway. I'd say to about there. And then what you want to try and do is get out any of those bubbles that might be in there that will impact your piece. So just going to use one of these blotting tools, and you see there's a couple just on the bottom, getting them to the surface if I can without trying to create more bubbles, so that hopefully long nose lighter can cure them. Well, get rid of those bubbles anyway. Nobody likes bubbles in their end piece, and normally it just takes a little bit of gentle persuasion, get them to the top, and then the torch, well, not the torch, the lighter will do the rest. So getting most of those out now, and I think for the purposes of this I'm reasonably happy with that. We're reasonably bubble free. And now I'm going to put this oval piece on. I'm just going to screw it up a little bit to create a few more natural creases. And look at that, I've just got some bits in there by doing that, which is not what you want to do. So just fish those out. I think that's actually a little bit of dry resin off the gloves that I'm currently wearing, so might be an idea to just clean your gloves before you do this. And then all I'm going to do before I actually place this in is just use this silicone release spray, give it a couple of sprays, and see if that, well, first of all, if it will work, because as I say, I've not tried this technique myself yet, and I don't know if it will cure because of the blue of the gloves, but as I say, I don't have any of the clear ones at the moment. So just moving that round, trying to create that sort of texture in different areas. And you want your piece to pretty much cover the whole thing. And there's a couple of little creases in that. And I'm reasonably happy that that will create some form of effect on the resin underneath. Now I don't want it all to be creases, because I think you can put too much in. But all it is just gently teasing it with a blotter tool. And I'm hoping that the impressions that I've put in will actually stay. So now what I'm going to do is just cure it fully. So 120 seconds each side. And I'm just hoping that the UV has enough power to actually go through this blue. Because as I say, I don't have any clear gloves at the minute. I've either got this light blue one, which was what we've used, or a darker blue, which again defeats the object. And again, if you're liking the content, guys, please like and subscribe to the channel. It makes a massive difference. Or do you know what, put something in comments if you're liking the way the experiments are going. If there's something you want to see us do, again, just put it in comments and we'll make it happen. We're up to nearly 6,500 now subscribers. The goal is by the end of next month to try and get that over 10,000. So lots more experiments, lots more content coming. And just so you all know, really appreciate the support and appreciate everybody liking and subscribing. So that side is pretty much cured through. Now what I'm going to do is turn it upside down and cure the other side. Again, giving it a full 2 minutes just to try and make sure that if we can, it is going to be cured. And hopefully the light will penetrate through and we'll still get that velvety design that we want. And you will always get, I find, a few of these small little bubbles from the ones that I've seen, just from where you're then attaching the silicone part of the glove or anything like that to the resin. But that's unavoidable. And I think in the overall piece, hopefully, once it's done, you won't see that. One of the great things as well about UV resin for me is just how quick it is. So normally you've got to wait at least 24 hours with epoxy resin and things like that before you can actually demold. But with UV resin, it's pretty much instant. And I think that's one of the great things. So hopefully this is going to work and we will have a ready done pendant in around about 15 minutes. But I think the key part of this experiment is A, whether it will cure through the light blue gloves rather than the clear ones that I've seen. And B, if this silicone release spray makes it easier to peel it off, and if it does, hopefully that is a solution. So, hopefully it feels cured. So the test is now, is how easy is this silicone backing going to peel off? Is it going to be any easier or not? And the thing is here, because you're going to be putting on another layer afterwards, you really don't want to demold the piece. So I'm just trying to take this off, and it has peeled off pretty easily, which is great. And if you look, I think the effect has worked without demolding. Now I've taken it off though, but just because again it's that light blue, I'm just going to give it another quick 30-second blast before I add any chameleon powders. But so far, that wasn't a hard job. All I did is put on some of the silicone release spray onto the glove before I attached it to the surface of the UV, which makes it easier to peel off. Or I presume it does anyway, because I've not tried it without yet. But that was certainly a lot easier, and it cured through the light blue. And as you can see, it's still got that effect, what I was after. So now what I'm going to do is just add some different chameleon powders. So I'm going to use some Galaxy, I think, for this. I'm going to try and get 3 different ones in actually. So Galaxy, Champagne and Grape. So I'll go with the Galaxy first. And I'm just going to put the powder on, covering about a third. Happy with that. And just making sure I've got everywhere covered. Then I'm going to go with a little line of champagne in the middle. So we hopefully get like a little gold effect just in that middle bit. Again, whether this will work, I don't know. It's the first time I've done it. But it is live, because I've not got a chainsaw going off in the garden or anything. And then the final bit I'm going to do is just this blue towards the top and make sure that the whole of the piece has been covered in these chameleon powders. Now I don't really know if at this point I want to blow out the excess or just leave it in, to be honest, because I'm not too fussed if I do get that extra little bit in the rivets that we've made. But we'll see. And now with chameleon powders, you're always going to want to back it with something dark, usually I find. So I'm just going to mix up a little tiny bit of UV with a little bit of black mica powder just to give it a bit of a backing. Now when you do this as well, you're going to want to do it in thin layers, because the black, unfortunately, struggles to cure with UV. So I think that'll be enough. And you could always use 2-part epoxy as well once you've done the front bits to do it, if you've got the patience to do that. But I haven't for this purpose of the video. I'm just going to use some black mica powder, mix it in. Again, not too much, but enough so that it creates that black. So tiny little bit like that. I suppose you could always probably try and do it in clear as well, and then use some black alcohol ink if that's what you wanted to do. But I'm just going to use the mica. So mixing that up and hopefully keeping it out of the sun whilst I mix it. And then I'm just going to pour it in a thin layer to hopefully give a back to this pendant. Moving it all the way around the sides. Try not to actually scratch the surface too much, because if you do that, you're going to scratch the chameleon powders that you've just put in. So wherever possible, just be careful and try and get a thin layer that covers everything. And then, as I say, I'm probably going to go in with another couple of layers on top. And whenever you're doing the backing with the black, I would suggest doing it for the full at least 2 minutes, because otherwise, again, you might have a problem with it not curing properly. And that is curing, but as you can see, it's a thin layer, so some of those, I suppose, rivets that we've just made through doing the velvet technique means that it's not fully covered yet, so that's why I'm going to do it in a couple of layers and hopefully get a fully cured piece that we can demold straight away. So again, just another thin layer going over it. Don't really need to worry about scratching as much now because we should already have that cured layer. And I'm intrigued to see if this will work. Just going to mix up a little bit more. And I'm not actually adding any more mica, so obviously that will give it a bit of a lighter texture, but it's still black and it should still cover it. And this is what I mean by building it up in layers. So if you're using black, you have to do it in layers, otherwise you'll just end up with a mess. And you want to get it reasonably even to the top of the piece that you're doing. And then hopefully this should, touch wood, be the final layer. And then I can give everything another full cure, just to make sure it has fully cured and hopefully give us a nice flat edge. I'm just taking a bit of care around these edges because I can see where the folds have made it slightly uneven. And if I do need to do some sanding or something like that afterwards, I'm not too fussed. There we go. Now to give it a full cure across the whole piece and hope that we'll have the finished pendant. And always remember with UV to cure it the other side as well, so that you get a full cure, especially if you're using a black backing. And then as a top tip as well, lots of people, when they're working with UV, they complain about the stickiness when they demold. So an easy tip to try and solve that is just to give it a final water cure when you've done. So all that is water in a silicone cup, put the piece in there and then cure it for another minute. And I'm intrigued to see the effects of this one because, as I say, it's my first time doing it, but the silicone release spray seemed to have really helped with me peeling that off and still keeping the piece in the mould whilst I did the backing. So actually, hopefully that part of the project's worked. So, as I say, I've got my water ready, and all I'm going to do is just pop my piece into the water and cure it again for another minute, and hopefully we don't get a blobby mess, because one thing I have found with UV myself is it seems less reliable to me than normal 2-part epoxy. I've not had any projects sort of not cure with the 2-part, but I've had a couple of issues with UV, and I think it's just more difficult to make sure it's fully cured, and I think that's part of the problem. But hopefully I've taken all of the precautions, so this should be a fully cured piece, and hopefully we'll get some really cool effects, so we will see. but I think that should have cured enough. So first, has it cured? Second, did we get the velvet effect? And third, have we got, wow, look at that. And that is that velvet effect. Really, really like that. Just going to give this a quick dry off as well. Always use a microfiber cloth as well rather than kitchen roll, because you can scratch your piece. So yeah, I always try and dry it off using a microfiber cloth rather than kitchen roll, because kitchen roll I tend to find scratches a lot more. I'm just wondering if I want to top coat this or not. I don't think I have to be honest, because the mould is still reasonably shiny. Again, I probably need to sort the edges out a little bit, just where it's slightly uneven. But just look at that for an effect. Really, really cool. And I will get some close-ups of this as well and put them on at the end. But it just shows you that was literally 20 minutes with UV resin, an old glove, bit of silicone release spray and some chameleon powder, and we got an amazing little effect there.